I think it's time to start this really interesting webinar that we have today. We have a pretty tight schedule, so I don't want to start with delaying it too much. So first of all, welcome everyone to today's webinar on how FinTech changes the rules of the game in the financial sector. So my name is Christina Grandien, and I am a researcher here at Mid Sweden University, and I will be moderating this webinar. And before we start off with the really interesting stuff, I just would like to mention some practicalities. This webinar will be recorded, and if you want to watch it afterwards, we will share it on social media. You can see in your Zoom window a Q&A function, I think at the bottom right corner. And if you want to ask any questions, please do so in the question and answers box down there. And we will try to answer them during the seminar if we can. And if we don't have the time, we will be happy to email you afterwards some answers. And I think I should stop there and leave the floor to Mustafa Nourallah. And Mustafa is a doctoral student here at the Center for Research on Economic Relations at Mid Sweden University. And Mustafa will today introduce the topic as well as stay on for the later panel discussion. So big welcome, Mustafa. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christina. Thank you very much. It's all my pleasure. I will share my screen. I would like to be sure that you can see my PowerPoint presentation now. So if I can receive a confirmation from you. Good. So good morning, everyone, and hello to people who are joining us from different time zones. In this short presentation, I will highlight some of the main FinTech concepts, which will be discussed later in the panel discussion. I mean, no doubt that FinTech is the most recent development in the financial industry. But before going further in our discussion today on FinTech, let us talk about what does FinTech mean? Actually, FinTech is a new term, and according to Professor Puschmann at the University of Zurich, it was Citigroup chairman John Redd, who most likely the first who used this term during the 1990s. FinTech is an abbreviation made from financial and technology. So when we use FinTech, we refer to financial services which extensively rely on technology. Different opinions might be found regarding the roots of FinTech and their contribution. Al-Tatal argued that the roots of FinTech went back to the 15th century when people started to use coins and paper to deliver financial services. Partly, I do agree with Alt's argument. I took this image in 2017 when I visited the Lund University Historical Museum. The text behind the image highlights some dates during the 15th centuries. However, this image, which has been taken at the Beirut National Museum in Lebanon, showed that ancient society had also used paper and coins to deliver financial services, like Phoenician at the East Bank of Mediterranean, Old Egyptian. Al-Tatal and their contribution also highlighted the contribution of analog technologies like electronic telegram, which enable bank to separate information from the surrounding environment and then to send this information to various places. Also, they mentioned the information and communication technology. And this triggered, it's worth highlight that according to many scholars, ATM's machine is probably the ancestor of many current fintech solutions such as mobile bank application. ATM's machine introduced for the first time in the United States in 1959 and here in Euro in 1967. It's worth highlighting that since 2008, the number of fintech startups has increased significantly, and for more about the emergence of fintech, check the work of Professor Harnoff at University of Bremen in Germany. To discuss the current fintech solution, let us use Professor Gomber Cup of Finance from University of Frankfurt. Professor Gomber and his colleague distinguish between digital finance business functions or fintech business solutions and the technologies these fintech business solutions rely on. They also highlighted the competition between fintech startup and traditional financial services. I mean, today, in addition to fintech startup and traditional financial services, we have big tech and governmental agencies or central bank. So Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, these four giant big companies have their own fintech project, like Apple Pay and Google Pay. Diem cryptocurrency of Facebook, previously known as Libra. Central bank also disclosed several e-currency projects. In Sweden, the Riksbank, Central Bank of Sweden, announced e-Corona project. In China, the People's Bank of China announced e-Yuan project. The European Central Bank also announced digital euro project. The Republic of Marshall Island announced national cryptocurrency project. We have also some countries who adopted the existed one. Like 2 weeks ago, El Salvador announced that the country adopted a Bitcoin as a legal tender. Also recently, the US Federal Reserve announced that a research paper will be released this summer to highlight the potential digital currency. Going back to Professor Gomber Cup of Finance, we sort fintech business solution into 6 categories. So we have digital financing, such as crowdfunding and crowdfunding actually is a fintech solution allow entrepreneurs and startups to raise funds for their project. We have digital investment, such as social trading, and social trading is a fintech solution combines investment platform with a social network. We have also digital money, such as cryptocurrency, and we refer here to money exists only in a digital environment. We have digital payment, such as mobile bank application, which is a bank application downloaded a smartphone that has an internet connection. Today, digital payments such as mobile and internet banking are widespread across the globe. The table shows the number of mobile and internet banking transactions between 2015 and 2019 in some countries. For commercial bank only, we can note an explicit increase in these numbers. The data available on the International Monetary Fund website. Also, we have digital insurance, which is a fintech or peer-to-peer insurance, which is a fintech solution allow people to insure each other. Digital financial advice, such as Robo-financial advisor, and here we are talking about a fintech solution which offers people a reasonably priced financial advice. It's worth pointing out that previous study highlighted that young generation show a significant tendency to adopt these fintech solutions. This map is based on FinDex dataset available at the World Bank website. We can see in some countries, and it represents the digital payment received or made in 2016. We can see in some countries like Sweden and Finland, the percentage of young people between 15 and 24 is high for those who are using like digital payments. The same percentage is low in some African countries. So we probably should remember that infrastructure and like technological infrastructure is essential for the effective fintech adoption. Advanced technology has, as has been mentioned previously, has performed an essential role in developing fintech solutions such as blockchain, which will be discussed later in panel discussion. At the end, I would like to share with you a new book on the impact of globalization and advanced technology on online business model, where you can find more information about this topic, as well as the references I used for today's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation, Mustafa. I think I will need help with starting my video. Thank you. Now we will continue with talking about the changing financial sector together with our excellent panel here today. So I would like to welcome into the discussion Cora Pedipa, PhD and Global Senior Manager of Financial Planning at HSBC. Hi, Cora, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I would also like to welcome Tek Ming Tan, PhD and Assistant Professor at Oulu Business School and External Advisor at Helsinki Blockchain Center. Hi, Tek, welcome.
Hi, welcome Christina and Cora. Thank you.
And last but not least, welcome Anders Stenkrona, PhD and Behavioral Insights Expert at Nordea Growth, as well as CEO of Stenkrona Investment.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. And Mustafa, you will, of course, stay with us for the panel and the interesting discussions that are coming up. I will start off this conversation with talking about how fintech business models offer several opportunities to individuals to invest their money. And my first question is to you, Cora. What are the latest and most developed fintech business models in the investment context?
Yes, okay, so first off, I want to preface my opinions are personal and may not reflect the opinions of my employer, so very classic financial disclosure there. So, I like Mustafa's definition of fintech. It's really just technology-enabled financial services. So with that broad scope, there's a lot that can be put under there. So when we talk about the innovation in fintech, for me, innovation is just the word for creativity. It's the corporate word for creativity, right? So it's funny because we've had a quantum leap in the past year and it's not really being discussed, but because of the lockdown in COVID, we had to scramble last spring about giving remote services. So actually a lot of companies, we looked through our compliance and our delivery systems. So we had a quantum leap in video conferencing software, live chat, all the functionalities so that I could advise you remotely. So that was huge in terms of your client would be able to get advice remotely. So really it's a hybrid model, but it's really close to having it digital with just the supported with human guardrails. So it's been, I think we've advanced 10 years in the past year because of the lockdowns.
Excellent. Thank you, Cora. We will move a little bit now and talk about investments to highlight that fintech business models can help people in planning their financial matters. So my next question is to you, Anders. How do you think that fintech business models support individuals in planning their financial matters?
Yeah, and I'd say it's a huge opportunity, and it's been going on for a while that these apps have been developing. And when we try to understand what people understand about their finances, and most people have a pretty good idea of how much they earn, if we start there. But not everyone knows what their money is spent on and what's actually stopping them from saving more than they are right now. And it's not always easy to understand how much how much your things or your balance sheet costs you every month just to own your things. So it's hard to understand, where's my money going? And that could concern people. So like what does it cost to own a car? You might look at a car and say, yeah, I could buy that car, but it will not only cost you in the interest payments and paying off the debt, it's going to cost you for gas, insurance, maintenance, the mechanic, and not to mention the depreciation of the car itself. So what good fintech services can do, they can make a huge difference in helping individuals understand where their costs are coming from and what things will actually cost to own, and get them a clear idea of what their finances look like, both with regards to how much money is coming in, which most people know, but mostly what's going out and where it's going to, and also how much my stuff is worth minus the loans I took to buy them. So in financial terms, you could say it could help you create a good profit and loss sheet and a good balance sheet to get a clear view of your own financial situation. And people kind of go like this or like this. They don't always want to know this. Otherwise, they would have done it themselves with an Excel sheet. But what these services can do is really to get a good, clear view of your finances. So you don't get swamped by costs, and that you're able to stay on top and feel good about your finances. And fintech businesses are working hard to produce these user-friendly, pedagogical views of your main costs and so forth, so you can help you build a fortune and improve your financial well-being. It's a huge opportunity, and it's getting better and better as technology is progressing. And just like Cora said, the past year has been quantum leaps in people adapting these technologies to a greater extent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Anders. Very interesting. And as we have heard now from more than one person during this seminar, is that fintech business models they are changing the financial industry, and also control and power is shifting from large banks to the general public. So I wonder, Cora, how could fintech business models enhance the democratization of finance?
Yeah, so when we look at using fintech, and I'm coming from the lens of somebody in big corporate who also was a researcher and worked in the crowdfunding and small fintech spaces too. And all a fintech platform is just platform technology, right? So it's sometimes we make it more complicated than it is. I like simplicity. So really a good business model will have human resource reduction, ease of use for the client, enhanced engagement and better outcomes for the customer, and safety and hygiene factors. So safety, regulation, and cybersecurity, and all those things we need to take care of. Really, we should be giving value to the client, as Anders was talking about, with their worth, or we're having some sort of business efficiency that's really going to help out the business. Those are the two main things. So keeping it simple, and it's so funny because we have really, really good, in other industries, we have good examples of this, like with the YouTube algorithm, with Amazon One-Click. Are we getting it right exactly? No, but we have examples from other industries. One key principle when you're designing fintech or adopting a fintech or increasing it to your business model is technology is a servant and not a master. If it becomes a master, if it makes things harder, trickier, more expensive, pain points for the client, it's not worth it. And believe it or not, there are, especially legacy fintech, that is very much like that. And the myth of build it and they will come, especially with robo-advisory, because we really go with the fintech of the basic transactional stuff. That stuff is really, really established in fintech now. Now we're doing more robo-advisory, goals-based investing, and more enhanced propositional stuff like Anders was kind of alluding to. So when we look at that, they build, we spend a couple years building something and we launch it like, oh, look at that. It's going to make, no, not always, right? So even really good Ferraris of software, Ferraris of tools take some time to really build up, because we might not have done the downstream stuff of the training, the enhancements, and sometimes we have a really great robo-advisor that took years to become successful. It was not an overnight success. There's one comedian that talks about joking about being a 10-year overnight success, and it's very much so. Don't get panicked if you launch something and it just you build it and they don't come right away. It doesn't mean you have a bad product. Don't chase perfection. Oh my gosh, I see this, and we'll have this beautiful vision, and then they'll denote it into use cases, and then they want perfect, and the scope creeps and everything. You want to implement something or use something and just enhance it, and adopt from other industries. I would love to see, my blue sky vision is to see us link more with the gaming industry. What Anders was talking about seeing we have an engagement problem, we have a financial literacy problem. Wouldn't it be cool to see it's like a Sims 4 simulation? When my daughter uses Sims, like that is like, it feels like it's light years ahead of what we can do. I'm like, oh, I can show auto updates on my balances. And she's like, she's got this live virtual environment. I've been looking at the costs of those. They weren't that expensive to make in respect to what we spend on our bills. The last two things are FinTech. It needs to be fun. It needs to be an engagement, especially with financial literacy. We have garbage in, garbage out. So they need to be engaged and it needs to be fun. What we see, like Dr. Seuss is a huge thing. Everyone thinks I think it's canceled now, but hopefully not. These engaging children's books, and they think, oh, well, the kids are just having fun with these books. No, they were invented as a technology to help help students memorize 200 sight words. We need to put the fun in there and have the edutainment come out of it. Edutainment, again, is having that source of fun with the technology that engages the clients and makes them care about their situation and helps them with lifestyle design. I hope I didn't go over. So that's my key points.
Thank you, Cora. Great to hear about bringing the fun into FinTech. I really like that. I also have another question for you, Anders. You talked about the advantages of using FinTech for personal financial planning, but what are the main concerns?
Yeah, and I'm going to twist that answer a little bit in the lines of what Cora was saying, because I love what she's saying. I can tell that we're doing the same kind of work because we're running into the same kind of problems. Let's say, I mean, there are some obvious concerns and problems designing these technological solutions, and one is technological in itself, getting the right data at the right time, getting it timely, all the data has the same timestamp. This is hard. This is much more harder than people would understand, at least that I thought when I started with this. And it's also, there are some legal issues. We can't do everything that we would want to do that we think is good for the customer. There are legal caps on what we can do, and those are good legal caps. So we have to, check ourselves that we're doing what's best for the customer at all times. But I'd say the main obstacle and my main concern with these financial planning tools and so forth is that people are too busy to use them. I mean, people are too busy to care about their long-term financial well-being. Let me try to spell that out. So there are enough surveys out there that show that people want help with three things. They want help to reduce their debt, and they want help to reach their savings goals, to invest, and they want to track their spending. This is what people say that they want help with. So apps have been developed for exactly these purposes, but it turns out that they're not used as much as the surveys would suggest that they should be used. So what's the problem? They're there. Well, people are simply too busy. I say they're running around buying milk, basically, for tomorrow. So a healthy financial behavior is almost always linked to delayed gratification, some kind of long-term thinking. And this is hard for people in general. So, taking action to improve your finances means that you have to sort of activate your mind and focus on something that's kind of difficult and kind of abstract, full of consequences if you get it wrong. So people would rather just say, I'll do that later when I have the time, and right now I'll go buy milk. And that's why almost always short-term reward will win. That's why things like one click and those things work, because it's an immediate reward. How to translate long-term delayed gratification into something immediate, that's the main challenge and concern for these financial fintech tools that are being developed. And we're working hard on this. This is hard, but it's a lot of fun.
So fun is kind of the theme here then, I think. I would like to move on a little bit. We have been talking about investments, and it raises some questions about security and related issues. And this leads us to talk about blockchain. So tech, why did blockchain experience this notable growth over the last few years?
Great questions. I think especially in the last 2 years, decentralized finance or DeFi has been gaining attention in the finance industry. So what does it mean by DeFi right now? So DeFi is a developing area at the intersections of blockchain, digital assets, and financial services. So in a general term, DeFi is a decentralized application, or we call it asset types, that provide financial services on a blockchain settlement layer, such as lending, trading, investment, insurance, and asset management. So I would like to highlight that there's a very important note, is that DeFi heavily rely on the blockchain database. So cryptographic, smart contract, and the cost right now. And of course, right now, because we don't have this so-called central bank digital currency, just like e-krona or digital euro, that's the reason why cryptocurrency has become the main digital asset in the DeFi space. So the key philosophy of the DeFi is centered with trust minimizations, or non-custodial design, open and composable architectures. So if you look at the current market share right now, I checked on the DeFi polls. So in 2020, in June, when it started with the DeFi, it's only have 1.6 billions, but yesterday it's almost like 55 billions. So basically the growth is like 30 times in 12 months. That is very, very big growth. But however, if you compare to the financial services market, the whole overall share is pretty small if you compare. So this is the reason why I would like to say that the DeFi still have a large room for improvement, I think in the next 5 years, especially. So the question is that, what are those example of DeFi services that we can get right now at this moment? I think the first one is about stablecoin that have you mentioned about, you know about. For DeFi, I would like to focus on DAI rather than USDT or USDC, because both USDT and USDC consider centralized kind of stablecoin. So DAI is pretty good for DeFi. So the second one could be decentralized exchange. As some of you might know about this Uniswap or 1inch or SushiSwap, whereby you do not need exchange center in order to do exchange. And other things related is lending, borrowing, derivative, insurance services, asset management, as I have mentioned before. So kind of story short, I think DeFi right now more focused on the digital asset.
Thank you so much. A follow-up question. What are the main concerns for using blockchain?
Yeah, that's a lot right now. I think the first thing is about regulatory questions. As Mustafa already mentioned, like El Salvador already putting Bitcoin, like if you now search on the Wikipedia, they actually have two currency on the Wikipedia. One is the US dollar, the other one is Bitcoin. But people actually have not really understand about what actually go in this country, because it's actually mentioned is a legal tender rather than a real currency. It means that let's say you have Bitcoin right now, we can go to El Salvador, perhaps not now, maybe in the next 5 months after it's approved, we can only pay for the tax, but it doesn't mean that we can ask the bank to actually accept the money as part like currency. So people have a lot of so-called the regulatory is not clear right now. The second thing I think is about the lack of blockchain knowledge. Even though a lot of people don't really know about what's the meaning of smart contracts. So for many, maybe technical guys, some people who are in the IT field, that they might think that smart contracts, is it legal? Is it being legal enforcement? Actually, it's not the case. It's just a code. It's just a coding, right? So the third issue is about this over collateration. So it means that if I have one Bitcoin, I only can get the money. Let's say I want to borrow money, I must have one. Must have this cryptocurrency in order to be part of getting money from the lending platform or borrowing platforms. So I must lend first, then only I can get the money back. So it means that I must have the access. It's actually different from right now what's happened in our world, whereby if I have a good reputation about myself, let's say I have a salary, secure income, I actually can purchase a house up to maybe like 300,000. But in the DeFi space, it's not the case. I cannot get the money, like so much money. I must have the money first in order to get like 70% of this borrowing the money from the system. So there also problem with scalability, like you have no transaction fees, problem with the limited kind of technical so-called interoperabilities. Also, I think a lot of you have been mentioned about the privacy problem as well as immature governance. I think those are the most important. And the last one I would like to highlight is talking about, even though it's decentralizations, but still a lot of hidden centralization or control. If you look at DeFi, most of the time we use Ethereum. So currently in the US and Germany actually control around 58% of the Ethereum nodes. So actually in these two countries, yeah.
Thank you so much, Tech. We will move on a little bit and talk maybe about the future. Reports and studies indicate that the young generation show a significant tendency towards FinTech business models. So Mustafa, how could FinTech business models help the young generation in managing their financial issues?
Thank you very much, Christina, for this question. As you know, I mean, FinTech business models offer people of various ages good opportunity, which could help them to manage their financial issues. When it comes to young generation, this generation is seen as tech savvy, tech native. They don't have problem in dealing with softwares, application. They can install packages, move easily from like Windows to Apple. But at the same time, they have humble financial knowledge and limited financial experience. So FinTech business solution offer young generation the possibility or to receive information about the credit sources, about student loan, about credit cards. And I guess most importantly, FinTech business solution or FinTech business models would help young generation to plan for retirement early. So to sum up, I would say that FinTech business models help young generation in increasing financial knowledge, then identifying financial goals. So if I would like to buy a car, if I would like to buy an apartment, if like I would like to save money to study for master degree, through starting to think about personal financial planning.
Mm. Thank you. And one last question for you, Mustafa. But before I ask the question, I would like to say that you still have the chance to ask questions in the questions and answers function. I think we're going to have a couple of minutes to answer them. So if you would like to, please add a question for us. So, Mustafa, what are the major differences in using FinTech business models in developing and developed countries?
Generally speaking, payments fintech business models are common and adopted worldwide. In developing countries, I would say that mobile money fintech business solutions give unbanked and underbanked individuals the opportunity to transfer money to their relatives, to pay bills. According to 2020 financial access survey issued by the International Monetary Fund, mobile money have provided financial services to many underbanked and unbanked individuals, like in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. According to the same report, in 2019, mobile money was close to 70% and 90% of the GDP in Ghana and Cambodia. So when we know that roughly 1.7 billion of adults worldwide have no bank accounts, we can appreciate that fintech business solution in this area. Also, we can see an increase use regarding mobile and internet banking in developing countries, such as Chile, for example. And developed countries, I would say recently, more fintech solutions like robo-financial advisors, for example, personal finance fintech solutions are adopted by individuals. So I would say in Euro or North of America, more people show interest in adopting these technologies.
Thank you so much. I cannot see any questions in the chat. Is there anybody still who would like to add a question? Please do so.
We were completely clear.
You were so clear about everything. If we should just kind of wait and see if there are any questions coming, we could maybe circle back and talk about, I think, Mustafa finished with talking a little bit about the future and so on. And I think that could be a good way of finishing. What do you see in like a 5-year development of FinTech? Where are we going to be at in 5 years?
Can I start? I want to add to Mustafa's, but I want to challenge him a little bit, because we thought that younger people would adopt faster, but because of the Black Swan event of last year, what we've noticed is that all ages are adopting FinTech faster. So that's another thing that's kind of leaped us forward. The technology of grandparents. So really just identity verification and is the issue with that. But other than that, like I don't see the age challenge or barrier there anymore for FinTech. I feel like it's an all age thing. You just have to pick out the vulnerable clients. And again, identity verification is always a necessity.
So for the blockchain perspective, I think in the next 5 years, maybe for the citizens, right now, I think EU also talking about personal identity, digital identity or digital identity management. So example, like in Finland, we already have this FinTech. So I think other countries also having this kind of thing, so that we try to control our own identity. It means that this kind of system is being developed. So in this sense, that let's say one day central bank digital currency is coming, so we can use this kind of a so-called not crypto wallet, I would like to say like maybe blockchain wallet that we have in the next 5 years or within the next 4 years, that we can use this kind of wallet as part of our identity verifications and use this wallet to govern all the currency or all the saving that we have, especially like digital asset that I mentioned, that we can invest into decentralized finance. Because right now, the key problem about decentralized finance, I think, is still go back to the smart contract. And before that, we are going to trust who is going to control our so-called saving, the money that we have to control by ourselves. But how are we going to make sure it is so secure? I think we still need this so-called digital identity management, great wallet. Now I think EU is developing these kind of things first.
And with regards to financial planning tools, the clear path that we see going forward, and I think it'll take about 5 years to get there, the path we're working on is, instead of apps presenting to you what you can do or that you have to sort of understand your finances, is that we hope to get that comprehensive view sort of in the background, like the engine under the hood. You don't have to look at the engine to know what to do. And there we will diagnose and say, the steps to a financially sound situation are these steps. And you have completed 1, 2, 3, which means that we highlight step 4. So you don't have to know everything about your finances. We know what is a sound next step to do. We say, save for your pension more or something like that. And it's like the no-brainers that you just get a button, press this button, and you can immediately improve your financial well-being. Mm-hmm. I think apps have to move in that direction, instead of the person taking sort of putting forth thought into their own finances, which people don't do. We have to do that for them and present them with a solution. Say, do this, and that will improve your situation. So we're going to see more of that, especially from the banks, because they have all the data, or easier access for the data.
I love that vision, Anders, because yeah, the logical next step for a client, because they can get overwhelmed. And it's Anders makes it sound so easy. Right? It's a brilliant vision. But getting there is difficult. And that's where the research and the analytics and the big data and just timing people and timing the messages in the appropriate way and giving them the next logical step is so important, and just making it easy on the client side, because it's not easy on our side, right? So yeah, that's a great vision.
Mustafa, would you like to finish with your vision of the future before we close this webinar?
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to highlight that I do agree with Cora that people of various ages adopt FinTech solution. What I would like to say, within 5 years, hopefully, the approach that FinTech business solution are using today, like one size fits all, will be changed. So today, like Robo-financial advisors are offering financial advice to people. The same services are offered to people regardless of their background or their experience. So hopefully within 5 years, FinTech business solution will start to think that one size doesn't fit all, and probably as Anders say, that some FinTech business solution will be developed for people who are generally busy, for others who lack sufficient financial knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you all people who have been here listening, and a big thanks to the panel, Cora, Tech, Anders, and thank you so much, Mustafa, for introducing us and being part of the panel. With 2 minutes to go, I think we will close this webinar, and I wish you all a really great day, and we will hope for the rain to stop sometime so we can go out and enjoy the sun again.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.